And this just came to light in the last couple of days. An NSA official admitted that they do what they call 3-hop out. So that means if they have a target who they think is involved in terrorism in any way, they're able to jump out 3 times and collect all that data. So that would be the suspect's friends.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle shown on 21 cable stations from Vermont to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org. The freeing of George Zimmerman after his killing of Trayvon Martin shook up a lot of people. 5 years after the so-called post-racial America, a black youth doing nothing other than walking home from a store is shot dead, and the cop wannabe perpetrator is not punished in any way. We'll have reactions in New Haven. Then in a rally in Hartford against our peeping Tom ever-spying government. We close with a confession from an Israeli soldier. We start with longtime prison reform activist Barbara Fair. People were having an event about Medea Benjamin and drones and Guantanamo just as the acquittal came out, and so Barbara Fair was asked to give some remarks at the event.
I'm still kind of raw about the verdict. I watched the trial every day for 2 weeks, and I heard all the evidence, and so when I heard the verdict, I was stunned. I still am stunned. Just before they announced they had a verdict, my son and I were discussing, what's the possibility that he would be acquitted. My son felt, the fact that 5 of the women were mothers would be in our favor, because they would understand what this family is going through, losing their son at a time when he was doing absolutely nothing. So my son felt that was going to be the thing that was definitely going to bring in a conviction. Myself, after working on criminal justice issues for so many years and dealing with people and their attitudes and racism and all of that, I kind of said, well, I'm hoping that that will make a difference. But I said the fact that the mothers that were on the jury probably can't even imagine that they would send their child to the store and he'd be walking home, listening to music, talking to someone on the phone, and someone would just follow him and end up gunning him down. So, and I thought about the fact that not knowing the actual experiences that these women on the jury had, I wondered about would their maternalism overcome any racial bias that might come into the decision that they would have to make. So I wasn't sure, but I was still hopeful, especially after I seen the trial and that Mr. Zimmerman lied from day one. They proved it, lied over and over and over again. I said, how could any jury possibly believe anything coming out of his mouth? The only other person who knows what happened that night, he silenced him. So I kind of felt, there was a chance. And so and I've been tweeting the information as things were going on in the court so other people that weren't watching would know. And so when they said the jury was coming in, I had already started writing my little text. Zimmerman was found guilty of, and just waiting to put in the words. And when they said not guilty, it's still painful, but it's a painful reminder of the criminal justice system that people of color have to face in this country every day.
A few days later, there was a rally in New Haven in front of the statue of Sinq, the leader of the Amistad slave rebellion.
I'm just really angry. And the reason why is because when politicians get up here and tell us they're going to change things, it never ever happens, okay? No, none of our rights were ever won in a ballot box or in a Senate hearing or anything. Our rights were won on the streets fighting for them. Politicians never gave us anything, okay? The civil rights, the women's rights, abortion rights, voting rights, they never gave it to us. People got out on the streets and they fought for them. That's the only reason why things change in this country, okay? So we have to fight for it.
That's right, we gotta fight, you hear that? We have to fight. That's the part that you don't hear. We have to fight.
And listen to me, reforms don't do anything because as we see going on right now, they're taking away voters' rights. They're taking away women's rights. You know, we fought for them. Now they're taking them away.
We're too
complacent. They can do it whenever they have a mindset to. And as far as this trial being unjust and not working, and the justice system not working, I disagree. This justice system is working exactly the way they want it to work. All right? It works exactly the way. That's why our jails are filled with young black men, brown men, red men. We outnumber, in our jail system, we outnumber the entire world. Okay? Now you're going to tell me we have more criminals than everywhere else. China has 4 times the population as we do, and we have more people in jail than they do. Okay? All right? The system works just the way they want it to work. You know? Exactly. They want George Zimmerman to walk free, to be able to racially profile kids. They want cops in our schools so they arrest 5-year-olds, you know, and put them in the system. You know, they can't create the jobs. They don't want us in the job market because they don't have the jobs for us anymore. So we're expendable. And they want us to go somewhere, and where they're putting us is in the prison industrial complex. Yes. Okay? That's exactly what is happening here. And until we get out in the streets in mass, yes, not just 100 people, not 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people. Egypt showed us the way.
That's
we
right.
can do that. 35 million people out in the street to fight for what they believed in. We need to organize and we need to get in the streets. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Jackson. I grew up in Church Street South Housing Projects, proud to say, from 1977 until 1989. Then I went to the University of Michigan. And I came back here and I went to Yale. And this is dedicated to my brother and all of the brothers who spent a lot of time in jail in Church Street South, who didn't do very much for selling a little weed. They went to jail for a long time for that. So I always say, my brother went to jail, I went to Yale, no difference. The only difference is I have a loan debt and he doesn't. Here we go. This is for Trayvon. When I heard the verdict, I had a heavy heart. I started crying, and I went to sleep. I didn't answer the phone because everybody was calling me. And my heart went out to my mother, who grew up in Jim Crow South. She knows what racism is firsthand, and she was very sad about it. So this is for Trayvon. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long ways from home. in peace.
And then on the weekend, in 99-degree heat,
Everybody to the right. We gotta do this right, everybody.
a few weeks ago, we showed video of a forum on NSA spying. This led to a protest in Hartford, Connecticut.
No transparency, no democracy. 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 No transparency, no democracy.
David, what's the reason that you're here at this protest?
We're here to bring awareness to what the NSA is doing, and we are urging our citizens in Connecticut to speak out and demand transparency and accountability from their federal government. Well, one of the problems, and this just came to light in the last couple of days, an NSA official admitted that they do what they call 3-hop out. So that means if they have a target who they think is involved in terrorism in any way, they're able to jump out 3 times and collect all that data. So that would be the suspect's friends, friends, friends. So you're literally encompassing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in those hop outs. And that is a problem because people have done absolutely nothing wrong or being caught in these digital dragnets. There is absolutely no probable cause, like a regular warrant that the Fourth Amendment requires, under regular warrant standards, and there's no notice. So if your information has been captured, you'll have no reason to know it. And that's why all the Verizon customers, and presumably every other carrier's customers, had no idea that their phone metadata was being kept and collected for up to 7 years. So it's a problem. Everyone should be concerned about it. This is not a partisan issue in any way.
What about the president who says, well, for the sake of security, you have to give up a little bit of privacy? Well,
it's not a little bit of privacy, and the problem with that kind of a statement is that it's not truthful. In reality, this system does not increase safety. They're getting so much data, it's needle in a haystack. They're culling millions and millions of points of data a day, and it's not functional, and it doesn't help the government, and it doesn't increase safety. All it does is violate people's civil liberties for absolutely no reason.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the press conference sponsored by the ACLU, the Lawyers Guild, the Bill of Rights Defense Committee, and the Connecticut Coalition to Stop Indefinite Detention, and about a dozen other groups who are here today to protest the NSA spying program that's been revealed by The Guardian, thanks to the efforts of Edward Snowden and Glenn Greenwald.
A lot of people will say, this is just metadata. What does that really matter? It's just, my calls. It's not the content of the call. It's just about the information surrounding my calls. And it means a lot. Your metadata can tell your intimate relationships, if you have a medical condition, if you have a particular religious belief, if you're a whistleblower, all that can be told through a quick glance at your phone metadata. It could also reveal where you are when you place your call, so it's not just the very, very basic information that the government has spun it as. President Obama has recently come out and said that this is a very minor encroachment on your privacy and it's necessary for safety and security. That's absolutely a falsity. This information is being culled in such a way that it is not helping with proactive terrorism enforcement. Instead, they're culling tons of data, and it's a needle in a haystack situation. They're really not even able to process it in a meaningful way. The other thing is people will say, well, there's oversight, there's the FISA court. And that again, is a falsity. Since its inception, the FISA court has reviewed over 34,000 applications and denied only 11 of them. It's a complete rubber stamp, it's ineffective, and again, there's no balance in this system. So it's up to people in Connecticut and across the country to demand this. I encourage you to reach out to your public representatives and demand answers. Many of them don't even have the full picture. But again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I appreciate everyone coming out in this hot weather for this cause.
Our next speaker is Peter Goslin with the
This past Monday, the Washington Post ran a profile of General Keith Alexander. He's the head of the NSA. And before he was the head of the NSA, he was one of the people in charge of collecting intelligence for the U.S. Army during the occupation of Iraq. Now, what's interesting about this profile, and Glenn Greenwald pointed this out just the other day, what's really significant about this is that his philosophy in running the NSA was developed from his philosophy collecting intelligence for the Army in Iraq, which is to say that one of the most powerful people in charge of collecting intelligence in the United States is treating the citizens of the United States as if we were an occupied enemy nation, as if we were the hostiles, the way that the U.S. Army viewed the Iraqi people. Now, I think you can take that fact and you can connect it to one other recent fact, which is the tremendous upsurge that we have seen in this last week in response to the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the Trayvon Martin case. And the reason you connect those two facts is very simple. The United States government views the American people as enemies of the United States government. And when does it see that? When does it perceive us as the enemy? No time more than when we are challenging unjust and illegal policies. And when they see 10,000 people in Times Square protesting against the Zimmerman acquittal, when they see thousands of people in the streets of Los Angeles and San Francisco, and when they see demonstrations in literally hundreds of other communities around the country, what they are seeing is, this is the enemy. These are the people we have to spy on and collect information on. It's not accidental that they put NSA spying in the hands of the spy chief from Iraq, who was also responsible for things like oversight of the Abu Ghraib prison. It's because of how they view the danger of Americans demanding rights instead of simply asking for them. And it's clear that when we are saying that we have to expose and stop this NSA spying program, we are not just saying it's because we all want to have some sort of abstract right to privacy. It's because we want to make sure that the government doesn't do now what it did in the 1960s and the 1970s, that when there is an insurgent community struggling against police repression and struggling against issues like brutality against people of color, we want to make sure that there's a way to stop the government from spying on them, harassing them, interfering with them, and killing them, which is what they did to the Black Liberation Movement in the 1960s and the 1970s. So we've got a lot at stake here. This isn't just some sort of abstract question of how much privacy do you have. It's whether or not, on the one hand, we're going to be governed by a Bill of Rights that provides us freedom from government intervention, or whether we're going to be governed by the NSA and the FISA courts that have every intention of scrapping the Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Imam Kashif Abdul Kareem. I'm representing Muhammad Islamic Center of Greater Hartford, but I'm also here representing the Muslim clergy and the general clergy of all the communities within in the area of Hartford. And I would just like to make the following statement on their behalf. This great country in which we live, we have to realize, was founded on some very basic freedoms. One of the basic freedoms was the open practice of everyone's faith. And we know that the founding fathers of this country, all of them, from Thomas Jefferson to Ben Franklin, were all leaders in this endeavor. Besides the freedom to behave and to believe, we are nations of believers that holds the same basic concepts together. We're all believers. We all believe that we should have the basic freedom to pursue happiness, to have equal opportunities, to be free to express ourselves, and to do all the things. We believe that these are not only man-made rights, but these are God-given rights that are given to us. In all of our holy books, all of them from the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible, we know that suspicion is frowned upon by all of them. In Islam, suspicion is considered a major sin. It's a sin that the Creator sees as a very punishable offense. The founding fathers of this country also felt that spying and suspicion was also a major offense. They would also punish people for these major offenses, and some of them would be sued and killed for these acts of what they call treason. However, today we know that America still sees spying on this country and revealing the secrets of this country as a major offense. We know this is true just by looking at what's going on with Snowden, the massive manhunts, and all these things that are going about to protect the privacy that this country values for itself. However, ironically, the basic idea of privacy is being abandoned by the same people who claim to value it the most. America, in particular, the New York Police Department, is spying on the citizenship of this country. Some people say they're only spying on Muslims, so it doesn't matter. Well, you have to remember that it really didn't just start there. At one time, the government spied on the Jews and the Catholics. Right now, we don't even know if they're spying on the Tea Party or some other groups. Who knows, we may be next. It appears to be open season for anyone who has an opinion about anything. So don't think it is only limited to Muslims being spied upon. Don't be deceived, it may be you tomorrow. Once precedence is established, it opens the door for more abuse. We have to remember that when Kennedy ran for president of the United States, people feared a Catholic president. When Biden ran for office, the question of his religious diversity crept in immediately. And then when Obama ran, they wanted to make him a Muslim. Why? So that he would become hated. See, religious bigotry is still alive in America, and it can shift to any group at any moment.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Cohen. I represent activists and would-be activists who must confront the very real fear that our phone conversations, emails, and social media posts are now fair game for the government to collect, file, and potentially use against us. My personal activism started a relatively short time ago with Occupy Hartford. When I first became active and participated in marches against Bank of America and the biotech industry, I gave no thought to the danger in which I might be placing myself, only that I was taking advantage of my rights to protest and free speech. Recently, I've collaborated with Shannon Watson and Rebecca Burke, two dedicated and visionary women, to create Activate Connecticut, an activist group which encourages not only the sharing of information on a wide variety of political concerns, but also serves as a call to action to anyone who sees wrong and recognizes their responsibility to put it right. That call to action is made extremely difficult when people are afraid to take a stand, make a public statement, join an action, or even talk with people known to be activists for fear that their names will suddenly become part of a list of people to be watched. They ask, what constitutes suspicious behavior? How will the gathered information be used against me? What is the government doing that is so egregious that our communication about actions for change constitutes such paranoia on the part of those in power? We've heard people say that they are hesitant to get involved because they're afraid of retaliation, loss of their job, the ruin of their reputation, or at the very least, the hacking of their computer. This is unacceptable, and the NSA must hear a clear and definitive statement from Americans across the country that we will not tolerate indiscriminate spying, nor will we stop the work we are doing on so many fronts despite that threat. Are you working for food safety, for an end to the wars, for economic justice, for educational reform? Are you working for environmental protections? Are you working to eliminate the enormous influence over our government held by big banks and corporations? Do you use your phone or computer to speak with anyone else who can answer yes to one or more of these questions? If so, the government now considers you fair game. Say goodbye to your privacy and hello to the possibility of having your life disrupted.
There's a great group called Breaking the Silence. Israeli soldiers who are disgusted with the things their government forces them to do, who talk about it to the world. Here, a young woman talks about casual cruelty against Palestinians because of boredom. I read the translation. A family came to the post and it was really a boring day. And you just detain that family at the post. You start, 5 people, you get on the radio, check ID card, so-and-so. It takes them an hour to check. So they're at your post for 1 to 2 hours, and you feel like tiring them out. So you tell them to do this and that. You go this way, you come here, you sit there, you stand, you. The worst part, what's hardest for me is that I somehow did it to be one of the gang. I was fed up with the battle of being the outsider. And you toe the line because I was fed up too. I had no energy for the stares of, what, don't you do it? But it has to be done because it's him or you. And you're important here, you have to be alive. Think about it. A Palestinian gets stuck at my post and I detain him for 2 hours. Eventually, if I do him a favor and let him go, he gets stuck at the next post where they also detain him for 2 hours. That's what his day is like. That's the daily routine of Palestinians in Hebron. They're constantly detained, and for what? I mean, why? Because the soldier at the post is bored. Not because it really has, not that I received any alert or I have any knowledge of intelligence about them, because I'm bored. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.